Welcome everybody to the Kartrider Drift League Preseason 1 Team Finals. My name is Wolf Schroeder. I'm joined by Peter here tonight for what could be a very epic rematch here of what we saw in our winners finals and playoffs.
I'm super excited to be here, Wolf. The finals of the finals, we can call it. You know, we've had such a long preseason thus far, and this is where it all comes down.
Yeah, this is the culmination of an entire season for these two teams. Teams who have a long-standing history, of course, in Kartrider esports and against each other. They've met in several finals, but we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But I do want to get the word out there, so tell everybody to tune in. It's live right now here on Twitch and on YouTube. Let's take a look at the overview, of course, going into this finals, because there's a lot to discuss. So if you've been watching all season, which I'm sure most of you have, you know the format for team mode, where you have a best of 5 for speed, a best of 5 for item, then you have the ace. We're going to have 2 of those. Now, if one team wins both Phase 1 and Phase 2, that will be the end of the tournament. They'll be declared the champion of our first preseason. But if one team wins Phase 1, the second team wins Phase 2, we'll go into Phase 3, which is going to be a King of the Hill 4v4 of 1v1. So basically, it's going to be like an all-kill format where essentially each player will play and have 1 life. If they are eliminated, then they call up another player from their team. So each team has 4 chances, and ultimately one team will eventually be eliminated in that decider in Phase 3.
I'm super excited to see potentially the King of the Hill. We've never seen anything like it so far in the preseason, and I feel like this is where it really comes down to your whole team's roster. They all have to pull their weight. It's not about a coin flip between a 1v1 just once.
Yeah, exactly. I think solo matches are really, really important. The exciting 1v1s we do see can sometimes be so deciding of a series, but now your entire team has to be completely involved.
The entire roster, and that's exactly what we want to see as we take a look at the race history between the two teams, KWANGDONGFREECS and Liiv SANDBOX. It's been mostly KWANGDONGFREECS' favor this season.
It has been, and they won in regular season when there were some injuries on the side of Liiv SANDBOX. World was able to defeat Neil in that ace match, then was able to do it again in the upper bracket finals against Insu. So 2-0 are KWANGDONGFREECS against Liiv SANDBOX, both of them by World in ace matches. But notice how close it was. If you look at the matchups that you could see below, where it says speed and item down there, both of them went 7 rounds, so we had the maximum of 15 tracks played, which hasn't happened in half a decade in Kartrider esports. It almost never happens. We could see something crazy like that tonight if each one of these phases goes the distance.
Definitely, we want to see some reverse sweeps happen this time around if possible, but as we take a look at the average rank for Team Speed, Hyunsu is out of this world. He's the only player with a sub-2 average rank.
And I think that average ranks being this split here, and you can see Hyunsu and Sunga the only ones here for Liiv SANDBOX, KWANGDONGFREECS and Spear the only ones showing up here, is actually a good sign. If your average rank is hovering around, you know, something like the 4, then that's really nice. Obviously, that means you're going to be doing well if you're going to make the finals, right? But if your individual players are going into this where 2 of your players are at the top, it means you're so reliant on 2 players, like a 1-2, like we've seen like Aura, for example, be very reliant on. But it means sometimes your team is not very well-rounded. I think both of these teams are extremely well-rounded, not reliant on one particular player. Hyunsu, though, you got to say, having an average rank above 3 here at the 2.85, that's almost unheard of.
Absolutely crazy stuff from Hyunsu so far, and so far in the most raced track for Team Speed, we do have Terracotta Twister for both teams and a very high win rate, above 70% for both of them.
Yeah, it is the best map for these two teams in terms of their experience, and their win rates are both above 70%. So I'd say there's a very good chance we will see this track picked in the middle of some of our speed modes, Phase 1 and Phase 2. I don't think either of these teams will ban it because it's just not worth your ban.
For sure, you kind of don't want to be that one where you're like, oh, I'm scared, I know you guys are good, so let's just get that out of the way. Why would you? You have to go skill for skill and just match the players and hope that your team has the better form today.
And here are the tracks that our teams have done very well on. The 100% win rate tracks, notice that if you look at Liiv SANDBOX, they're 5-0 on Zigzag Timberland. I think that's definitely one we're going to be looking at in terms of the bans potentially here for KWANGDONG. And the World Tour Boostwood, they're also 4-0. On the other side, 3 tracks here, 3-0 for KWANGDONG, Boom Hill Tunnel, Bayside Bridge Run, and Destruction, or rather Desert Construction Chaos.
Right.
But Liiv SANDBOX only one loss on Boom Hill and Bridge Run, so it's not like they're weak on these tracks by any means.
For sure, we haven't seen enough of games to know if Liiv SANDBOX truly cannot play these tracks, but also it's worth noting that they have been staying away from the bottom 3 tracks for the most part, refusing to play them, you know, banning them, not picking them. So KWANGDONGFREECS definitely has some strategy to work around here.
Oh, no doubt. So I think that when you look at how this is all going to break down here once we do get into the track pick and bans, it's going to be the first phase is really where we're going to learn what their feel is, and then the second phase, when we go to that second pick and ban, that's going to be the adjustments that are made. And taking a look at item mode here as well, you and I were talking about this before the show. It's pretty incredible to have a 100% win rate on an item mode track because of all the variance that happens. There's so much volatility. But both of these teams having a 4-0 and a 3-0 respectively here. Desert Pharaoh's Pass, I think, one of those tracks that we almost never see banned. So I don't think that's one that will be targetable here by Liiv SANDBOX, but KWANGDONGFREECS definitely have a good strategy here.
Factory Brody's Gloom. This track is super tricky because not only do you have item mode being a variable on its own, the track itself puts up so many obstacles, and that definitely does mess up players from time to time.
Yeah, both Brody's Gloom and Cogwheel Crush really creating a lot of problems sometimes for these racers in terms of the environmental hazards that you could face on those tracks. We'll talk a little bit more about the timings of the tracks that we're going to see in item mode when we get to the races themselves. But let's talk about who is winning. So if you're not familiar with Kart Rider, and I'm going to do a little bit of this today because I know a lot of new viewers are coming in, to win item mode, the first place winner is all that matters. So whoever ends up crossing the finish line first, their team actually takes the W. So it's important to see who is doing that for these two teams. It's Sungbin for KWANGDONGFREECS, and it's Jimin, the item ace for Liiv SANDBOX. Critically, KWANGDONGFREECS doesn't have a designated item ace of players considered the shot caller. They're the ones who make the final push to the end. Jimin has been incredible in this position. Sungbin, on the other hand, just a great racer all around, but is bringing most of the W's here for KWANGDONGFREECS.
I love that you mentioned how KWANGDONGFREECS doesn't have an item ace, yet they're able to find so many success in the item mode so far, really showing that each player here shines at their best at all times, and their teamwork is just out of this world.
Yeah. It also doesn't diminish the achievements of the other players because usually you have one player who's designated to win and the other players support them. So it's just not looking at it going, wow, Insu's not good at item mode. No, he doesn't. He's not the one who's supposed to finish first, although he has 3 times. Now, if you look at who has, Liiv SANDBOX, who they have lost to in item mode, it has been, in particular, Rox Esports, who threw them off. And then things started to go downhill a bit. Yeah, they beat Finale, but they were one of our weakest teams in regular season. Then they lost to both KWANGDONGFREECS and Aura. So KWANGDONGFREECS, despite not having that item ace, bested them here. And now they get an opportunity for revenge.
It's been super depressing ever since we got into the postseason. Not a single set of item mode going in the way for Liiv SANDBOX. And before that defeat to Rox, they were the most dominant team in item match that we kept referring to. So hopefully they're able to recover some of that dominance today.
That's the hope if you're a Liiv SANDBOX fan. I think that speed mode is, if you lose that one, you lose a lot of momentum right now because Liiv SANDBOX have not looked as hot in item mode. I think a lot of meta shifts have happened in item mode, and we are seeing teams, instead of just stacking Magnet and the Nitro and looking for the Magnet Rush combo that we see often finish the race, we're seeing a lot of teams now use the tracks architecture to actually use, for example, a Magnet to fly over the top of the enemy team instead of just trying to pull somebody back and cross the finish line. So strategies are getting more complex. I think KWANGDONGFREECS, Aura in particular, really evolving with it. Liiv SANDBOX staying a little bit more standard, and that can be considered a weakness going into this series.
On top of that, mentioning some of the metas that we have seen develop so far in the KDL preseason, I really love how UFO has become such a big threat. A lot of teams actually actively calling out whether the opponents have EMP waves. Oh, they don't have it. Let's use it right now, and that can really change the game's flow.
So let's go ahead and, of course, welcome our finalists to the stage, starting off with KWANGDONGFREECS. They are a higher-seeded team. Welcoming KWANGDONGFREECS to the stage here, a team that has been to 3 of the last finals, but they haven't been able to take the first place. Let's go ahead and welcome them now. We've got a cool hype video for them. Okay, it will play eventually, I promise everyone. There's a hype video, here it is.
프릭스 역사상 최고의 전력이라고 평가받고 있는 4명입니다. 이번 프리시즌에선 무조건 우승컵 들어 올리겠다의 멤버들이에요.
피오가 바라보고 있습니다만
이렇게까지 계산을 해서 만들어내나요? 성민의 직구!
자, 계속해서 압박을 주고 있습니다.
강력했어요!
골드!
결승전 간다는 약속 지켜드렸고요. 우승까지 열심히 달려보겠습니다.
The Kwangdong Freaks, and now welcome to them to the stage. Came in as underdogs at the beginning of the season. We knew they would be very likely a team to go to the finals. Everyone knew it was going to be these two. That was what everyone was saying. But to come in as the red team, the higher seeded team here, is something nobody really saw coming.
Absolutely, Guangdong Freaks throwing off all expectations now, putting them at the highest level possible here in the team finals against a team that was hyped up as potentially the best, but now tides have turned. Guangdong Freaks the favor coming in.
They definitely have all the momentum right now. They've had some additional time to rest and prepare for this finals, and we'll see if they can actually make their first championship happen. But there is a team that stands in their way, one team who has been so successful since they joined Kartrider League in 2019. It is Liiv SANDBOX.
드리프트에서도 강팀의 힘을 보여주고 있습니다.
완전체 샌드박스는 어마어마하게 강했습니다. 커버의 중요한 움직임들 기가 막히고 할수 있을까요?
그리고 오른쪽 두 명을 들어가서 또 이렇게
상기게
이러면 지민이 들어옵니다. 이거 되네요.
역시 현수의 시대라는 걸 증명했습니다.
선수 생활이 이제 일주일 더 늘었으니까 열심히 노력해서 좋은 모습 보여드리고 있습니다.
Liiv SANDBOX is a team that needs little introduction if you're a fan of Korean esports or if you're a fan of Kartrider, as these are some of the most legendary players to have ever played the game. And they're walking out now, coming in tonight, not with the momentum advantage, but a lot of narrative storylines on their favor. I think they're the fan favorite tonight. They have two players, Insu and Sunga, who will be playing their last professional Kartrider games tonight before they have to go to mandatory military service. Everybody feels for this team right now. Even if you're not a Liiv SANDBOX fan, you know if this team wins, it means so much for these players.
You love to see the expression on Insu and Sungha's face. They're definitely feeling their last dance on this one, not really wanting to go out on a sad note, coming in cheerful and absolutely ready to take the stage.
There is going to be a very brief interview between the two teams on the stage. We won't have that translated for you guys because this is the global stream, but I'm sure they have a lot of choice words for each other. But to give you guys a context of Insu and Sungha, two players who are incredible Kartrider players who have had fantastic careers together on this team. This is the last time we will see Liiv SANDBOX with this roster together because they have to go to the military service, and they just found out that they couldn't delay any further very recently. Had to announce going into playoffs. I think there's been a lot of pressure on both these players. Sungha, who had an injury, so the first time these teams matched off against each other in regular season, Sungha wasn't able to play. A lot of people said that was one of the main reasons why Liiv SANDBOX failed to beat them. Then later on, Insu was called out in that really critical ace match and actually failed as well. Nerves got to him. He was under a lot of pressure, a lot of fan expectations for this player. They want to see him perform well. They want to see him get that title. Now, it's his preseason, but still, winning the first tournament ever in Kartrider Drift across the world here in Korea means a lot for these players. And if you're going to cement your legacy with like the last chapter here, the last dance as we call it in Korea, you want to finish with the win. You want to actually take the title of the first preseason champions.
It has absolutely been one of the most rockiest seasons for Liiv SANDBOX so far in the history of Kartrider. They have gone through multiple hardships, as you mentioned, Wolf, not only the last dance, but also the injury. So hopefully today they're able to end on a high note.
This is the viewer prediction from Africa TV, and it is almost exactly dead split 50-50.
Yeah.
0.4% of people are giving the extra edge here to Kwangdong Freaks. So it's about as close to a 50-50 prediction as you can get. We'll take a look at some of the team's predictions as well as talk about ours later on. But it is going to be a close matchup. Like I said before, the last time these two met in winners finals, it was the longest series you could ask for we saw in half a decade. Now, here are the predictions of the teams.
Another one, Wolf. Another 50-50.
Another 50-50.
Split right down the middle.
So-
Nobody can guess.
I'm going to have to ask you right now, who do you predict?
Okay, well, for me,
I know it's a tough question.
it seems like a 50-50, but in my heart, the emotions for me are calling out for the last dance. I'm on Team Liiv SANDBOX today.
I 100% would be happy if Liiv SANDBOX takes the win. I would like to see Insu, have his final moment here, Sunga as well, and have that last dance. But I'm going to have to say I'm leaning towards KWANGDONG tonight. I actually think KWANGDONG are going to take it. They've evolved as a team more. Their synergy looks better right now. Their item mode has improved a lot. And I think some of those nerves that we saw in the ace match in particular for Insu against World might come back again here tonight. We also saw Neil struggle in the 1v1 matchup yesterday in the solo finals. He was ultimately defeated by Cool, a player on KWANGDONGFREECS. So that 1v1 definitely also favors the side of KWANGDONGFREECS, because we are going to have potentially 2 ace matches today that we could see in Phase 1 and Phase 2 before we go into our King of the Hill in Phase 3, which is also going to, of course, be 1v1s. So with how close these matches have looked, just in general, when you look at the winners finals, I think that ace match is going to be really important. Liiv SANDBOX right now are 1-3 in ace matches, whereas KWANGDONGFREECS are undefeated at 3-0. So the ace match factor here and the clutch factor is where I give like my 0.4% to KWANGDONGFREECS, like the fans. Like I'm not saying I think it's one-sided. I think that KWANGDONG will crush, but I'm like 50.4% sure that they'll win.
Yeah, if you have to give just a slight
Yeah.
edge, place your bet. Who's going to have a slight edge today? You're saying KWANGDONGFREECS, and I definitely do see the point in that, because so far in the preseason here, they have shown to be the more dominant team. They've met Liiv SANDBOX already twice so far, and they've beaten them twice as well. So Liiv SANDBOX, if they lose here again, it would be pretty clear that KWANGDONGFREECS was the better team this season. But I'm placing a lot of hopes in Hyunsu especially. We've seen the Korean casters earlier in the hype video say, we're in the era of Hyunsu, because Hyunsu is absolutely crushing it with his average rankings. And I think that's really going to shine today, especially in all the ace match fiasco we're about to witness.
Yeah, and so a lot of these players, if you're not new, or if you're not familiar with, if you're new to KartRider esports, as we are now moving into KartRider Drift, it's the upgraded new version of KartRider itself. So there's a lot of history in KartRider League, which was played on KartRider. We're now moving into KartRider Drift. In KartRider League, the players use their real names, much like StarCraft Brood War, instead of IDs. So now in KartRider Drift, we're in KartRider Drift League, the KDL, we actually have players using IDs over names. So a lot of players, because their identity over half a decade, some of these players about a decade of time of playing KartRider professionally, stuck with their names because they're like, well, that's what I was always called, right? Some of them obviously dropping the last name. So yeah, players like Insu, Sunga, etc. So if you're not familiar with what these words mean, they are, of course, the players' names most of the time. We have some exceptions, and you'll see some players also have an ID that is not what is displayed above their name. We'll have multiple of those today. But it's going to be an exciting finals. I really do think that it's going to go the distance. I'm hoping, selfishly, that we do get to see that King of the Hill format, because it is so exciting, and there's a lot of strategy that can go into which player you start with first, who's going to be your finisher, who's going to close out. So I would say that, like, for example, if I'm playing as Liiv SANDBOX, I probably want to put Insu like in the middle if I'm playing King of the Hill, not at the beginning because there's a lot of pressure on him, but not at the end either, because then it puts an insane amount of pressure on him. Oppositely, like Cool, slow starter, we've seen that a lot in solos. Like, you definitely want to end with him, I'd say, if you're KWANGDONGFREECS.
Yeah, and I feel like for sure we got to see solo match finals yesterday as well between Cool and Neil, who are also facing off against each other today in their respective teams. And you have to be so excited to see them potentially perform in King of the Hill format, especially. It's just a stacked roster, and every single player is going to pull their weight.
Yeah, it is a lineup of players. We have 9 players today because KWANGDONGFREECS don't have an item ace.
Right.
9 players that are the top of the top at their craft in the world. And if you've never played KartRider, you should first of all try it. It's a very fun game. But when you watch it and you're thinking about your own kart racing games you've played in your region growing up, they're often party games. They're for fun, right? It's something you could play with your little sister, and it's going to be okay. KartRider is a hard game. It is a challenging game. It is a mechanically demanding game. I guarantee you, if you pick it up and play it for your first time against good players, which you will because most people play KartRider very good, you will probably not finish your first race. You will not finish. You will retire the race. It is a very mechanically challenging game, and these players have played it for so long and honed their skills so well that you will see some beautiful things tonight across these two teams and these rosters that are fighting, because that's what everyone's here to do, is to prove that as we transition from Kartrider to Kartrider Drift, those skills are still there. But some players, some newer players, it's like, no, I have the skills. I'm a rising up-and-comer. I'm going to qualify. I'm going to perform really well. So that's kind of been the whole point of our preseason, and it is delivered in a big way.
For sure. I love how you mentioned about, the difference coming into Kartrider Drift, and especially for us viewers and watching these pros play, because I feel like as a viewer, when you first get into Kartrider Drift, you're basically going through the track without even drifting once, because if you drift and you make one mistake, you get punished so heavily for it. But the pro players have already gotten so used to all these techniques, and there's so many different mechanics and forms of drifting. Sometimes you want to purposely slow down to get more boost gauge, and some of those interactions is definitely what forms the strategic core of Kartrider Drift for me, and I'm just looking forward to learning that from two of the best teams here in the KDL.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot that you could bring into your own play at home. And it is very exciting to see sometimes how players like Neil have actually changed the game multiple times this season.
Neil build.
The Neil build. When we say build, it often is referring to, sometimes you could talk about a cart build, which parts are upgraded for your cart, because you have limited resources to upgrade. But it also usually refers to the path you take. And that's a term that comes from StarCraft, of course, but it's how you take certain turns and what your strategy is to approach certain parts of the track. So we are going to be starting this very soon. Tell your friends about this. Get the word out there. Like I said, we're on KDL Global here on Twitch. We're on KDL Global on YouTube. Both channels, of course, have VODs of what's happened before this if you want to catch up. But don't do that right now because we're about to start. But tell your friends about it. There will be more seasons in the future. And we're excited to bring this to a Western audience officially for the first time.
For the first time right here, this is where we open up our KDL Global to bring you guys the English commentary that some of you may have been waiting for. And thus far, I feel like this preseason is a perfect way to begin that first chapter. And such an exciting matchup waiting for us today. KWANGDONGFREECS versus Liiv SANDBOX is also a perfect way to close it off.
It certainly is. It's where we started the season, where we expected these two teams to be. And yeah, there were some hiccups along the way, and it didn't go exactly to script. I mean, we had a world where maybe it would have been Aura here actually today with KWANGDONGFREECS and
or
not Liiv
Rocks.
SANDBOX, or Rocks as well, is very close. But it is time, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to get into this matchup, a three-phase battle here between KWANGDONGFREECS, our higher seed, and Liiv SANDBOX. It all comes down to this.
But first, of course, there is going to be the picks and bans. That's the first part of any game. You have to make sure that you set yourself up for the tracks. As we take a look at KWANGDONGFREECS as a team, they have had such a relentless march so far, starting in the main stage in first place.
Yeah. So this is a team that has 4 players and not 5, so no item ace, which means they don't have a dedicated shot caller when we do play the item mode. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but no one can be more desperate for a championship than us. KWANGDONGFREECS have never won a title. 3 back-to-back consecutive finals, but they have never actually won a championship. And even though this is preseason and it won't stand for the record books, it would be huge if they could get finally that championship under their belt in a new game here, to be the first ones in history. As Liiv SANDBOX on the other side here, nothing but titles for this team. 5 championships, 6 finals. There's only one other team that separates these two in terms of Kartrider history in the team league. It's DFI Blades, formerly Hanwha Life Esports, a team that is not in Kartrider Drift. They did disband. Hojun was coaching that team. But now that they're gone, I mean, KWANGDONGFREECS is the closest that anyone has come to Liiv SANDBOX, besides DFI Blades, of course. So, this is a huge battle between them. And, of course, a shout-out to Sunga and Unsu here, who will be playing their final match. This final series here, the last dance.
They will definitely remain in our hearts. The core part of Kartrider Drift and Kartrider League has had Sungha and Insu in it, so we're very sad to see those players go away, but we do get to see them perform today for their last chance. Here's the speed tracks.
So, the higher seed goes to Guangdong Freaks because they won the winner's match. So they will have an opportunity to pick a track that is protected because you get to choose whether you want to get that protected track in speed or an item. They chose speed. They're going to go with World Tour Terracotta Twister. This is the KDL track. It is almost always where we have started every single series. Guangdong loves this track. We talked about it earlier. Such an important one for them. They'll protect that one, and then we'll see the World Tour Boostwood ban come out, unsurprisingly. And then, as mentioned, we were talking about the tracks earlier on. We see this ban now coming out for Desert Construction Chaos here for Liiv Sandbox, a track they really have been banning all season long.
Yep, not a single game played in Construction Chaos for Liiv Sandbox, and we see that continue today. Or is Zigzag Timberland? I'm really surprised to see that given to Liiv Sandbox by Guangdong Freaks because Neil is super good at that track, and Liiv Sandbox as a team also know how to play around that.
Yeah, notice the Boom Hill Tunnel also coming out here for Guangdong, one of their better ones. Liiv Sandbox, I believe, 6-0 on Zigzag Timberland. They also won one of those very games against Guangdong Freaks in the winners final. So bringing it back here, unsurprisingly, as we take away now Mine Winding Slopes and then New York Rally will be banned by Liiv Sandbox. A track I've always felt they were very good at, but they consistently have banned it here in the postseason. So not feeling as good on it now. And Glacier, Extreme Stadium, Liiv Sandbox also winning this track against Guangdong Freaks when they faced off in that winners final.
Definitely. We're seeing some switch up now. The bans have been pretty surprising for me. I wasn't expecting Winding Slopes to get taken out. This is a very popular track to actually just get played out by most teams, and we see Bayside Bridge Run as the final pickup for Guangdong Freaks.
One of the better ones for Guangdong Freaks, and I'm surprised we see the New York Rally actually banned instead of Bayside Bridge Run. Looks like Liiv Sandbox have been doing some studying here in terms of what they want to play in, and just feel like if Guangdong pulls it out, they're going to feel comfortable with it. So it feels like a track list that does favor Guangdong Freaks, albeit slightly, but history here of 2 of these 5 tracks in recent times definitely advantaged Liiv Sandbox with that winners finals record. So, you know, I think it's a pretty standard list of tracks. No surprises just yet. I think when we move into Phase 2, that's when we'll see maybe some changes.
Yep, and now we get ready to go into the picks and bans for the item mode. We do have Liiv Sandbox having first pick priority here, taking World Tour London Night, and they've had a great success on that track thus far. They played it already 6 times, while Guangdong Freaks, they didn't play it as much.
Yeah, London Night, we've seen Jimin have a ton of success with the final push so many times. We've also seen Neil pull it off too. He's very smart at that track, so I'm not surprised to see that prioritized here because they get to protect this track since they you know, are on blue side here, taking item first. KWANGDONG Streets also been a track that Liiv Sandbox have looked pretty good on. Not as many races played there, but a lot of experience, and on the eye test, you could definitely know they're a strong team. Bit of an odd pick here for Forest Mushroom Caves, considering how good Liiv Sandbox has looked on this map historically.
For sure, both Guangdong Freaks and Liiv Sandbox have done well in Mushroom Caves, so we'll see who takes the edge on that one today. Mine Magma Cavern being picked up by Liiv Sandbox. This is another track that's pretty surprising because statistically, Guangdong Freaks has had a better showing there.
Now, Brody's Gloom here, we knew this one was likely to come out, but the question now is, do you take away the other factory track, the Cogwheel Crush, or you take away Half Pipe? Because Half Pipe has been just the highest variance track, I feel like, in item mode always. The Polar Half Pipe has so many things that can go wrong so quickly with the high ground there at the final push, where you have to get on the high ground to secure the win usually, when there's all the chaos, all the water bombs that you need to avoid on such a narrow track. So if Guangdong Freaks are confident, they don't ban it here, I think. But if you're feeling like, okay, this could be one thing that causes problems for us, I think you take it away. They're going to ban Mine Motherload instead, and we'll see what their pick is going to be here.
Motherload being a ban completely threw us off. Guangdong Freaks spinning things around.
They're going to pick it. They're going to pick Cogwheel Crush.
Yeah.
They're crazy.
The crazy Freaks. They pick up the Crush, and they're hoping to crush Liiv Sandbox in that track today, and it's going to be for track number 4. And I feel like between these 2 teams, there's such a high chance that we actually do end up going to round 4, so I'm excited to see what happens there.
And there it is. This is the choice that Guangdong Freaks, you know, they had to consider. Do we ban this one away, or do we let it through? And it will be Glacier Polar Half Pipe for our final track if we go here on our first phase item mode. Knows both win rates above 50 because these two are our best teams, right? They're the strongest teams. That's why they're in the finals. But it is rare to see much higher than a 50 on this track because it is arguably the most variable track in kart rider drift at the moment. So here's our speed track list. Terracotta Twister, pretty stock standard. Zigzag Timberland, massively favor Liiv SANDBOX there. And the deeper we go down the list, you know that Liiv SANDBOX is great on Extreme Stadium. But with KWANGDONG having an additional pick here, Boom Hill Tunnel, great track for them. Bayside Bridge Run coming through here. You want to slightly favor KWANGDONG, but it's so slight.
Super slight, as you said, Wolf. You know, even in the fan predictions, it was only a 0.8% difference. And honestly, even at this point with the tracks locked in, we don't know who's going to take it because either teams can absolutely pull off a better form and just completely crush their opponent here today. In the KDL Preseason, our match number 1 is getting ready in speed mode. It is going to be World Tour Terracotta Twister.
Off we go. This is going to be our very first track of our grand finals here for speed mode. Terracotta Twister here. Notice above 70% win rate for both of these teams. It has been their most commonly picked track. It is very often the first track we play here in speed mode. And Spear and World starting off with a bang here.
Yeah, World taking some insanely aggressive lines, tried to block out Neil, but he does fall behind now. And we see Hyunsu maintaining a second place for Liiv SANDBOX, a player who's had the best average rank finishes so far.
Yeah, right now it's really about here Cool and World catching up right now because Spear is normally the sweeper, so he's great defensively, but when he's actually the one who's pushing through first, he hasn't had the same amount of success as World. Huge error here. He's going to drop back in a big way, so yes, Spear with a great start, but he's not the type of player who can challenge for first place. You're dealing with Hyunsu, Sunga, and Neil, and everybody else is so far behind. Look at the map to the bottom right. Look at how far behind World and Cool are here. They're just not contesting at all. They've got a whole lap left to catch up, but it is going to be so difficult. They're going to have to rely on drafts from their teammates.
Right, it is a Liiv SANDBOX domination all across the board. You look at Spear, he's surrounded by 3 players from all angles, but Spear, he finds the line and he gets into first place.
But 2-3-4 is a win condition here. Liiv SANDBOX could win with those places set up, and that's exactly where they are right now. Look at Sunga here attacking Sungbin, preventing him from taking those inner lines the way he wants to try to pass. He is trying to get a draft here to push through, passing Sunga, especially these narrow tracks. That could be an angle you could find. But their positioning here, the formation, they have that set diagonal line, just preventing Sunga from getting anywhere through. He almost is pushed off the track, and we're getting to the very end now.
Oh no, Sungbin! He gets crashed completely into the wall, and that's momentum dead.
Yeah, completely dead, and even though Spear looks like he's going to finish first, 2-3-4 will be enough points to qualify here for Liiv SANDBOX, and they will take it 20-19. So if you're new to watching this and you're trying to figure out how do you follow which one of these players or which one of these teams is ahead, look at the scores at the bottom left. They will be updated automatically, but there are certain combinations. 2-3-4 is one of them, where if you have players in second, third, and fourth, no matter what, it will be enough points to win regardless of where the rest of your team is. Another common combination is 1 and 2. If you have players in first and second, no other score combination can actually win. You can see 10, 8, 6, 5, etc. going down is the point distribution. But if you're confused, just keep an eye on the bottom left. Great start here for Liiv SANDBOX here. Great defensive play from Sunga, preventing Sungbin from actually crossing that distance. If you can get, 1, 4, 5, etc., get a lineup there, you can actually win and qualify this, but 2-3-4 is going to be enough. And despite Spear's best efforts, it is going to be the first track going over to KWANGDONG. A lot of momentum now, or rather to Liiv SANDBOX, excuse me.
Yeah, Spear getting that first place was pretty crucial because it did deny the 1-2 from Liiv SANDBOX. As we take a look at the replay here, this is where we've seen, I believe, Sungbin, or World it was. He got completely boofed off the track.
Unfortunate there. Tough angle with Neil competing here. This is when Sungbin is pushed back here by Sunga. Sunga playing great defensively here. And Liiv SANDBOX, they win it by 1 point, but it felt like we're in complete control from start to finish, honestly.
Yeah, and now we see some of the fans for KDL saying KWANGDONGFREECS is going to win. Let's take that victory. And honestly, Wolf, I feel like KWANGDONGFREECS is at a bit of a disadvantage right now. Liiv SANDBOX ahead 1-0. Track number 2 is going to be Forest Zigzag Timberland. Off we go into track of choice from Liiv SANDBOX. They are super scary when they come into Zigzag Timberland.
Yeah, they are 100% win rate on this, looking for their 7th win on this track this season. And they were able to take it when they faced off last time against KWANGDONGFREECS as well. So at the start here, Neil and Sunga pulling up into 1-2 for a moment. We'll see if they can hold on to this. World will actually pull ahead. This is the ideal setup here for KWANGDONGFREECS. Something like a 1-3-4 where Spear is in the 3rd or 4th place position. He's not officially listed as one, but his role has been this season as that of a sweeper, which means that he's trying to defensively block their approaching players as they have a lead, and that's the lead they have right now. Look at what he's trying to do here, preventing Sunga and Neil and creating some collisions so that World can stay in first place while also not falling behind himself. He's doing a great job of it, and he's one of KWANGDONGFREECS' most critical players.
Yeah, but Sunghai, he does manage to break through the offense of Spear, and now he did break that 1-2 for KWANGDONGFREECS, meaning Liiv SANDBOX have more time to do some catch-up. Hyunsu and Neil doing the blocking out for Cool and Sungbin.
Yeah, Sunghai here needs to maintain that first place spot right now, or they are going to find themselves behind. World and Spear challenging Sunghai right now, trying to use that tight inner here as we cross the 2nd lap. Neil, he's very good at using Team Nitros here to actually pass at critical junctures, sometimes even in straightaways to try to catch up. So it looks like he's significantly far behind, but as you can see, when he uses those Nitros, he's threatening always, and he's going to push through.
Yeah, Spear, he did manage to get the recovery on 1-2, but it's now Neil breaking that formation. You see Neil, he took the outer there, coming back in for the inner. He wasn't able to break through World, but now it's Sunga coming in as well.
Yeah, World here just trying to hold on that spot. Spear, if he could just push through here, they would have the 1-2 win condition, but Insu and Hyunsu so far behind. This is good enough. And yes, Spear with an incredible play here, and now 1-2-3 locked up, and look at the blocking from Spear. He's actually gaining momentum while blocking here. They might get a top 4 here, almost unheard of at the competition level this high. And Neil breaks his way into top 4, but it's not enough.
Yep, he tried to go for a decelerate there, but it didn't work out. But it doesn't matter because it's still 1-2-4 for KWANGDONGFREECS. It's all up to Neil to break that 1-2.
And it looks like that 100% win rate is going to end for Liiv SANDBOX tonight. KWANGDONGFREECS in complete control. They leave this track open. We were worried about it, but it's a dominant 1-2 finish here for KWANGDONG, and they are going to tie us up 1-1 here in speed. And history might just repeat itself again, where we just trade tracks back and forth between these two titans of teams.
We are definitely going to see the best of 5s play to the fullest at this rate, Wolf. Who would have thought that Zigzag Timberland is where KWANGDONGFREECS wins against Liiv SANDBOX?
Yeah, Liiv SANDBOX's first loss on this track here, handed to them in the finals. And Spear, every single time KWANGDONGFREECS get in a position where you have Spear contesting 2, 3, 4, even 5, that's exactly where they want to have him. That's where he is going to find the most value. Because as a front runner, he can do fine, as we saw in the first track. But when you put him in that position, he's just going to create so much disruption. And Insu and Hyunsu fell behind so early because they tried to take aggressive lines. He attacked them, pushed them into the wall, and they fell so far behind they weren't able to challenge really at all. The 1-2 is the quote-unquote win condition they got here, KWANGDONGFREECS, but I don't think they even necessarily needed. They had such a lead. We're going to see which one of these two teams is going to take the advantage as we move into the village, Boomhill Tunnel. Off we go. We are tied up 1 apiece here on Boomhill Tunnel. This is KWANGDONGFREECS' track pick. This is their 100% win rate track. We'll see how they perform.
And the best track record is being kept by World right now. And you see him already in that commanding first place position, looking very strong. Liiv SANDBOX, on the other hand, 2, 4, 5, 6 is no joke. Insu trying to catch up to World.
And World here pushing very aggressively now through these corners, taking risky lines here, the inners. But Insu is trying to challenge, and actually his risk is paid off here. I say that. He's really struggling to hold on to this one, and this is a very hotly contested top of the pack here. Neither team really having their builds lined up the way they want to.
Ooh, we're seeing now the collisions coming into the wall. So now finally that congestion is going to break out. Now it's Insu and Spear. Insu with the Neil build, but oh my! I was gonna say he might lose momentum, but he gains it with the boost, and now he's still in first.
We just saw this for the first time last night by Neil. Insu copying his teammate here to actually get a little bit of a larger advantage, but Kwangdong Freaks actually set up right now for a 2-3-5. We're going 400 meters away. We need to see Hyunsu pass here, and Insu can't even hold on to
Whoa,
first. Spear! The spin finish as well. What a showman! Spear's gonna do it. Kwangdong Freaks strike back in a big way on their track pick.
Man, we thought World was going to be the one to maintain that top position, but no, it's Spear having such a phenomenal blocking there, sweeping and maintaining that first place finish.
Really nice attempt there from Insu, but I think he didn't quite hit the mark in terms of following the Neil build there. The way that he bounced on the railing there is actually, the timing was a little bit off and he lost a little bit of momentum. Yeah, he still got the advantages he was looking for, but it wasn't the big enough advantage where he could actually pull the distance far enough away to really could see his teammates have a little bit more space to attack there. And Spear, man, this guy just sees the game in ones and zeros. It feels like sometimes he's seeing things that we can't see. And as soon as he knows he's got the track done, he does a full spin turn because he has that much of a lead. He knows his team has that much of an advantage. He's just going to be a showman here. One win away from winning our first phases speed mode here, are Kwangdong Freaks now.
Yeah.
And we'll watch this again here. Look at this. World is able to get right through threading the needle.
Oh
And
no,
Sunga.
Sunga.
Yeah.
That box gets so many players back to back. Someone's always dying there, losing all momentum.
And the timing where World saw there between, as Sunga tried to go for the collision there, he just saw the bounce and then he takes his opportunity knowing he's got just enough time to boost there. Well played.
Yep, definitely. As we get now ready for our track number 4, it is going to be in Glacier Extreme Stadium. Off we go. Kwangdong Freaks leading out 2-1 against Liiv SANDBOX. We have Cool in the lead.
Cool in the lead here, 1-3-4 with Spear in 4. That's exactly where you want to be if you are Kwangdong Freaks. However, I say that Spear actually hits a collision there on the wall, trying to take that inner turn to then set up for a bounce into the enemy team, but actually it's going to fall down to 6. So now, not the same level of control I was just alluding to here. Spear does have an opportunity on this 2-lap track, though, to catch up. He's not that far behind. Cool, though, it so critically holds on to this first place. Sungbin will also take a small collision here. Glacier Extreme Stadium has a ton of rough, hard, hairpin turns, as you guys are going to see as we watch this big one here that we're about to go through on this first lap, is where a lot of teams can catch up. Hyunsu looking for those opportunities.
Wow.
Sungbin's blocking, though.
Yeah, wow,
Oh!
Hyunsu loses all momentum there. And now it's Cool, Spear, and Sungbin in a 1-3-4 for Kwangdong Freaks, looking absolutely commanding Wolf.
And this is rough for Liiv SANDBOX because they have not looked this clean in item mode recently. If Kwangdong Freaks are able to close out the speed round this decisively, does not bode well for them for this finals, as right now Sungbin and World, you know, lagging behind a little bit here, but Cool and Spear still staying in second and third. Somebody has to get first, though, for them to win this. It's a 1-point difference between the two teams.
Oh my.
Spear.
Yeah, Cool. He did fall behind, so now it's Sungbin coming up to that third to pick up the pace for his team. It is looking really close right now. It's actually Liiv SANDBOX in the lead, slightly going back over to Kwangdong Freaks. It can go either way, neck to neck.
It is really just going to be out who gets that first place here. And the final hairpin turn. Spear pushes ahead of Insu. He's going to take the inner. Spear blocks him out. Another inner turn attempt here. Insu, one final Nitro. He's got the Team Nitro. He's going to have to use it here to take first place.
Oh, he doesn't agree there, but it's actually Insu who manages to come in first place for Liiv SANDBOX, and that is going to give his team the lead.
Critical usage of the Team Nitro there. Everybody holds it knowing, okay, this is a battle for first, and he uses it just in a straight line there, avoids any collisions, and just barely crosses the finish line first. So we are going to go to a 5th round here on our first phase of speed. And it's tied up 2-2. One final track to decide who's going to take the first advantage here. It's a record set here by Insu as well on this finish, previously defeating Jong's record here by the slightest of margins, 0.006 seconds.
Yep.
But he is going to set a new record here in the grand finals.
I was wondering if Insu was going to greed there on that last little jump, but he didn't. But somehow he was able to be patient, like you mentioned, Wolf. He just had to wait for his moment with the team boost, and he was able to get the most clutch turnaround ever as we take a look at the replay.
Yeah, this is the first lap, of course, where things are a lot more chaotic here on the hairpins, where we saw that big error from Sungha. And then in the final moments here, notice Insu takes the more aggressive inner, uses the Team Nitro there to guarantee the first place while taking that right side turn where he's not going to collide with anybody but prevents anyone from doing the same to him by utilizing the Team Nitro to cross the finish line first. So very careful play.
Yep, absolutely planned out and calculated to the T. And now we are here, ladies and gentlemen, in round number 5 of Speed Mode. It's Village Bayside Bridge Run.
This is the deciding round here for our first speed mode. As some aggressive cuts coming out early. Sungbin going to be the victor here off of the starting block, taking a big advantage. Remember, this is the track that Kwangdong is favored on over Liiv SANDBOX here massively. So, you know, right now, definitely the ball in their court. And the start here, 1, 2, 3, is amazing.
Sungha, he managed to weave in through the members of GWANGDONGFREECS somehow, taking the inner and then the outer. But look at that recovery from GWANGDONGFREECS. Absolutely unrelentless, not giving any space for Neil to come in.
Yeah, Neil saving his Nitro here to look for a later push here as the pack thins. And you can see he's able to break through, but they need more than this. The 1, 2, 4 is exactly how Liiv SANDBOX has been playing Kart Rider Drift this entire season. Now it's KWANGDONGFREECS taking the same style here when you get that advantage. You don't even want to fight for 1-3.
Look at that outer!
That's an insane outer, but he gets a collision here, tries to use this to his advantage, but the recovery isn't good enough. Sungha going to break through the center part here, and unfortunately, 1-2 still in the hands of KWANGDONGFREECS. Now Liiv SANDBOX closing that gap quite significantly here, but they need to close it more. Spear, can he hold on? That's the question. Is World going to help him out?
Yep, now it's the fierce battle for 1-2 right now. Sungha doing all he can to prevent World from getting that. You can see him trying to collide World into the wall. Now it's Hyunsu coming into first place.
All right, we're getting to the final moments here of this track. Insu so far behind here, and the 1-2 still stands. Right now, Neil trying to break through. There's just not enough space here. And Sungha is trying to draft his way to an advantage, but Spear misses the cut.
Yep, Hyunsu manages to block out the lines of GWANGDONGFREECS players. Now it's Neil once again looking for the inner line, going for that play, and it's Neil who's maintaining that first place, potentially all the way into finish line, but 2-3-4 for GWANGDONGFREECS. What a turnaround.
Yeah, it was insanely close. It looked like all the focus is on Neil because he takes that inner line, or the outer really, into the inner there as it changes into that zigzag corridor there. He actually takes the as the crow flies angle where he basically just goes corner to corner without turning or drifting at all. It's a straight shot through, gets him into first place, but unfortunately Hyunsu is not able to keep up and compete, so the 2-3-4, the total of 19 points coming through here is going to be enough. And unfortunately for Liiv SANDBOX here, this is going to be Speed going over to KWANGDONGFREECS, and what looked like a heroic attempt there from Neil, it was great for him, but it's got to have to be more than that. And it feels like so far here in Speed, even though it wasn't very close, 3-2 scoreline here, KWANGDONGFREECS had better starts, and they were able to control the pace of these races so incredibly well. And I think that we're kind of seeing the hourglass flip a little bit here, in that it felt like for most of the season, you would say that about Liiv SANDBOX. KWANGDONG's a good team. They're figuring out how to utilize Spear. There's a lot of strategy where we're seeing Cool up at the front lines, World up in the front lines, and then Spear is pushing for them. But now it's these starts that have been so incredible. As we're going to watch this one more time. Look at this, Neil taking inner here. Curves, goes straight between these corners, but unfortunately a collision occurs there. Man,
Spear! That is so good. He manages to block out a player of Liiv SANDBOX there. I feel like the one downside to the strategy of taking the inner on Bayside Bridge is that potentially Neil, because he was so focused on his own line, he wasn't able to provide anything in terms of sweeping. So we have to be a little bit more careful with the strategies. Neil looking excited to see Jimin being swapped in as the item ace.
So Jimin is going to come in. He's going to be the shot caller for item mode. And Neil, even though he is the Liiv SANDBOX player is most famed for his individual performances as of late, and was able to play in the solo finals yesterday, even making top 2. G-Min is a player who's a specialist at the item mode, and KWANGDONGFREECS does not have such a specialist. They've just been reliant on the team synergy and the shot calling they've had all season long. As let's take a look at these tracks one more time. We did have the pick and bans earlier, but London Night has been, I'd say, of these 5 tracks, the most pivotal track for either team. It has been so good for Liiv SANDBOX. Their timings with G-Min on that final push have been great. But the rest of this, it gets a little bit messier, right? I mean, in terms of the fact that this is going to be decided if we go to 5 on Polar Halfpipe, that is a track that has... it just goes both ways. You just don't know. There's strategies you could use. There's specific ways you want to finish that track out, but it is just so chaotic. Cogwheel Crush is similar. It's hard to say. Like last time, I think we could give a slight favor to the side of KWANGDONGFREECS, and they were able to take it. This time, it feels like there's no such advantage, but if World Tour London Night does not go over to Liiv SANDBOX, could be a rough start for them.
For sure, item mode, this is where all the tricky bags come out to play. And now we are ready for track number 1, World Tour London Night.
Off we go here. Item round 1 here in Phase 1. So, at the beginning of item mode, 2 players usually hang back and try to get some OP, busted, strong items like the Storm that you see used here. The Lightning going to come through, and that is a common strategy. But ultimately, the win condition, if you're watching for the first time, and I'm going to stop explaining this after this first phase, I promise, but if you're watching for the first time, the first player to cross the finish line, their team will take the round. Doesn't matter about how many points you get, it's just whoever crosses first.
Yeah, and right now we're seeing not a lot of items being held across the board, quickly being cycled through. Cool managed to dodge a sneaky banana there. We're seeing 3 magnets across the board, 2 of them on the side of Liiv SANDBOX.
Yeah, notice there on the map, there's 2 ways to finish this track, so you have an opportunity to take the narrower path. There's a lot more ability to get attacked there. You can take the wider, safer path and try to surprise people when you finish the race. As item mode is often about the timing of those final items. So Cool right now in first place. Magnets, most critical item in item mode because you can pull somebody back while pulling yourself ahead. So a lot of teams will look for Magnet and Nitro combo like G-Min has right now. He's sitting up here in first place trying to even deny some item pickups right now. As Insu will also move up into first place here himself now. And we're just stacking items right now. There's the UFO you talked about. The UFO coming to the meta actually now recently as a way to stop that final push. Going to use it early though, not going to hold that tech to the end.
We saw Lightning come out from Liiv SANDBOX. Only Cool was able to shield that out. We're seeing double Angel being held by Sunga. Not a single Angel on the side of KWANGDONGFREECS, so you have to be concerned if another Lightning comes out, that would be catastrophic.
Yeah. G-Min here is just trying to set up the best possible way to end this track here. And as we move into the final moments here, we'll see if he goes left. It's going to be able to get up here onto this high ground. Oh, huge missile on the spear. That is massive. World now kind of the final hope here, you have to say, for KWANGDONGFREECS.
Hyunsu, he actually took that upper line and now he's coming in. Got the Magnet targeting him in. Now it's World and Jimin. It's World though who takes the outer line and he manages to close it off, taking that first place finish for KWANGDONGFREECS.
World holding onto those items to the last possible second when the push came through. He knew that all his team needed to do is just basically blow all their attacks on G-Min, who's going to be the front runner, to then make that push through the Ferris wheel. And then as soon as all those items are expended, he has the opportunity to come up late. So it looked like, oh, he's the only hope. He's sitting back in 7th place, but he's got the proper items to actually make that final push through. And that hit on the spear almost made it look doomed because he was the one who was actually starting the initial push. He got caught. That was a really good missile. I'm not entirely sure who fired it, but it was beautifully played to actually shut down that momentum. But luckily for KWANGDONGFREECS, World still had the tools in his inventory to actually make that final push happen. Very close there, getting maximum value out of the Magnet. We may see a replay of it from his perspective because item mode gets chaotic. It is very difficult oftentimes to track exactly how it's all going down.
There were so many clutch missiles being utilized in this track number 1 already. I'm loving seeing the divergent metas coming in. London Night was definitely a fun one to watch, but we are already ready for our track number 2. It is going to be Forest Mushroom Caves. Here we go into item round number 2. Gwangdong Freaks 1-0 leading out against Liiv SANDBOX.
The Sphere and Sungbin actually hanging back here to grab items on the start here. Hyunsu is actually going to avoid this big bomb here in the narrow choke point. And that's going to give him a pretty significant lead. Avoids the second one with a nice shield. Times the shield perfectly. If you could build a big enough lead, a new strategy becomes not to actually look for the timing, but actually to just finish as fast as possible. But now he's getting caught by these homing wisps, and that strategy's done.
Yeah.
It's very rare, but sometimes you can get so far ahead, you're just like, no, I'm not doing the final push. I'm just going to push for half a lap advantage. Nope, not happening this time.
And I'm loving to see the water bombs. They're actually coming in as the color red now whenever Gwangdong Freaks uses them. Look at that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's definitely something I haven't seen before.
Yeah, it's a new thing we've added here to the observing, so it's actually really easy to tell which team is attacking. Good shield here onto that missile coming out from Sungbin. Only magnet on the field right now belongs to him, in fact, and he would like to save it if possible, but they're going to just end up using it here because he's losing too much momentum from the chained lightnings coming through.
And there's another lightning yet for Jimin here, going to be used now. Cool manages to shield it off, and now a Water Wisp also gets shielded by Hyunsu, and another one.
Yeah, lots of shielding coming through here. Cool also going to shield a water balloon here. Is going to shield a second one. Insu in first place right now, and Cool caught by this missile, finally running out of defensive options here. And Insu is starting to build a pretty big lead. Because Hyunsu is here, could block some of the targeting and use shields like this, that lead is going to widen. And they're going to need something like a UFO here or an aggressive magnet to catch him. And right now, there's no magnets on the field here for Gwangdong Freaks. So Insu in a great spot right now. Spear pulled back, shielding this again. And they are so desperate to catch him, but I don't know if anyone can. He's got the EMP ready, too. No one can even UFO him, even if they had a UFO.
Spear with the Water Wisp, however, he's going to send it at Insu. It gets shielded out immediately. And you look at Insu, he's just strolling down into the finish line. Liiv SANDBOX coming in with a comeback, tying it up 1-1.
Yeah, that was a really different type of item mode. We don't really see item mode played like this, where you just toss out shield after shield after shield and stack those and win that way. And that's exactly what he did. He was just sitting up there in the front, and because he had his teammate, of course, to block for him as well, Sunga is able to prevent a lot of those attacks from coming through, can mess with some of the targeting as well. And then he picked up the EMP, and that's when you knew, like, okay, nobody can stop me. He's got shields, now he's got an EMP. No UFO can connect with this guy. We don't have enough long range to actually catch up to him. And no UFO came through, but he even had the EMP just in case a UFO was going to come through. So, dominant performance here.
I actually did see a UFO being used on Insu, but he was just so far ahead that it wasn't enough to slow him down to a point that Gwangdong Freaks really needed. As we take a look at the replay, that was a nice water bomb in the beginning.
Yeah, and then we had a few lightnings chaining together through here at this beginning part. And then moving to the second lap, and things start to get a little bit chaotic because Insu just shields repeatedly here. Cool getting caught there as well. He was kind of the last hope in terms of challenging those top two spots with Insu and Sunga. But our last dancing players coming out big here, coming out on top. So we are tied up 1 apiece as we move into Mine Magma Cavern to find out which one of these two teams is going to take the lead in our Phase 1 item mode. One and one here. Reminder, Gwangdong Freaks did win speed, so if they win item, they will be the winners of Phase 1. So momentum here definitely in their favor.
Wow,
because their
four-man.
That was a big one.
Yeah, the
That
water
was a big
bombs
one.
are so useful, especially in the beginning of the track. And Jimin, he's holding on to another one.
Yeah, this one is going to be avoided. Sungbin taking a ton of damage here. Try to hold on to his first place spot as bananas are being held here. Jimin going to try to get use out of this item that's very rarely impactful here in professional play.
Alright, and now we see a UFO being utilized in
Barricade.
Sungbin.
Yeah, it was a good barricade too there. Not going to be able to set up 3, but with a narrow track, it's going to connect.
Right.
Good shield.
We're seeing Angels now coming in for both teams, 1 apiece, and there's the magnets as well. Not a lot of magnet booster combo, exactly 0 currently.
Yeah, none, but this time since we have magnets before the final lap, that is going to be an impactful strategy. Ooh, a nice bomb here onto Jimin. The UFO also going to connect here, so he's going to lose a lot of momentum, but Yeah, we will have Magnus this time, so there will be a final push, whereas on the last track it didn't end up being that way. Spear with double nitro here, so far ahead, it can push that lead. Now, you always want to take the outer part of the track if you can when you see that there are water bombs in your opponent's inventory, because you know that can hit you.
Right. And now we see the water whips connecting onto Jimin, a UFO on Spear. It is now Spear holding that first place position still for Guangdong Freaks. Look at the Liiv SANDBOX coming in. They're coming in like a pack of hyenas.
Okay, another UFO going to catch Insu here. World pushing through those barricades. Spear having double nitro, and they have another set of nitros themselves. Jimin is going to be the one looking for that final push. That's why the observers are watching him here, because he's going to look for the magnet into the boost here. Spear in first place is going to try to use that momentum. Keep your eyes on Jimin once he pulls that magnet out. Angel to block so he can get into position. Insu also pulling for this, but Spear's just too far ahead.
Yep,
Sungbin as well.
He's just going to be able to magnet and slingshot all the way into first place. Even had to target his own teammate Spear there. It was pretty one-sided, I must say, for Guangdong Freaks on that one.
Yeah, Jimin really the only hope, but there was just too much chaos there. And in the final parts of Magma Cavern, you don't have a straight shot where you pull the magnet and then get a ton of momentum. You need a little bit more control than he had to offer there. Would have had to pull somebody else and then wouldn't have been able to push through the way he's looking for. And Sungbin just finishes in first place here. Like you said, pretty massive lead, and Jimin's opportunity just is not seized upon. And one of their weaker maps, so not surprising here, but definitely not the strategy they were looking for. But things are going to change pretty rapidly. We just move into Factory Cogwheel Crush, where things can get very crazy. The end of this track is insane. There's a lot of obstacles to deal with. You're going to have to work with a lot of tempo, and we see a lot of item usage early on this track.
Absolutely. Cogwheel Crush is going to throw things off track here in round number 4 of Item. It is Factory Cogwheel Crush. Who's going to take the lead here? Will it be Guangdong Freaks or Liiv SANDBOX? Off we go into track number 4. We are seeing Guangdong Freaks taking a pretty early on, really aggressive format here, prioritizing the formations more so than the items.
Yeah. The shield, double shield pickups we're seeing here coming through, it has been kind of a new way to play the meta, where you just hold on to those and try to get a pretty massive lead rather than try to spam them out early and look for an early magnet. So I think we're seeing Guangdong Freaks really showcasing they have a new understanding of how item mode could potentially be played, as World is going to take a massive lead here from all of these items, all the attacks hitting Sunga. Say that, but he's able to get the lucky pass here on that robot after recovering, so still maintains the spot first.
Yep, and we're seeing a lot of high-value items across the board already in the first lap, as we see Sunga holding on to that Angel. He doesn't want to use it for something as minute as a missile.
So Jimin once again has that Magnet Rush combo with the Magnet and the Nitro. He's sitting back in 6th place right now, and this is a very strong map for that because you could actually gain a ton of forward momentum and aerial momentum with it on the final lap. But we're still a ways away from that, so you have to keep an eye on how close he can actually get to those competitors. He's moved up quite significantly here now into 4th place. He's going to hold the edge here, avoid that missile. And he's really the last hope here right now for Liiv SANDBOX here as we're in our final lap. No one else really in position to challenge. Insu also has a magnet combo. He's far away, so Jimin's going to use his early, knowing his teammate has another one.
Yeah, but there's the UFO right now for Sungbin, so Liiv SANDBOX definitely looking to pick up an EMP wave if possible, but it did get cycled through. Now World sitting up there with the Angel and Boost.
Yeah, Jimin just trying to make sure he can pass this robot before he uses the magnet here. We'll try to get some extra momentum. UFO coming through, but the storm has to be blocked here.
Yep. It does get blocked out. Fortunately now, it's Jimin and Hyunsu for Liiv SANDBOX. It's Hyunsu with the magnet as well. So things are going to get really spicy here in the last few 100 meters.
Yeah, Cool also holding a UFO right now, so Jimin is going to really struggle to actually cross that finish line early. Magnet out here already, but Spear is pushing through. He's got an Angel on him. He's on high ground here. Into it. He doesn't block him. He doesn't block him.
Insu!
We're going to 5. We are going to 5. Oh, he just didn't. He didn't see the angle he was taking there. It was a pretty easy block opportunity if he had just passed to the right there. If he watched his rear view, had an opportunity for sure. Insu just casually steals the win. No block attempt whatsoever. He's like coming through, just pushes his way right into first there. I mean, nerves are high. This is the grand finals of our team league here for KDL preseason. But man, I have to say, I think that definitely a block could have happened there, at least an attempt, and Insu just is able to walk his way through.
Yeah, I mean, Insu just said, excuse me, passing through.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you hear that from behind, you just instinctively move to the side.
Yeah, you're like, oh, sorry, my bad.
And that's exactly
Oh, wait, it's
what
the finals!
oh no, what am I doing?
Oh, man, yeah, because we usually see some incredible blocks from these two teams, and it just didn't come through. As we are going now, Peter, to Glacier Polar Halfpipe, the highest variance, highest volatility map in item mode for our decider here. Let's jump into it. We are tied up 2-2 here. If KWANGDONGFREECS win this final track of item, they will win Phase 1. If Liiv SANDBOX win it, we're going to our first ace matches. A banana will connect here early. Very rare to see. As soon as, speaking up, holding two.
Oh my, another one.
The aim was sick on it. You could actually use the rear view.
Another one!
What? 3 bananas? World's going to lose a ton of momentum. It is item mode, so it's not going to be end of the world, but still, it'll be the end of World's first lap here.
Banana party is happening in Polar Halfpipe today, but now players have run out of bananas in their inventory, so we're going to see a lot more trades between water bombs and shields.
Insu trying to deny Spear from picking up that item, and unfortunately for him, it's going to cause Spear to pick up that one, and he's going to get a magnet. Now he's got the Nitro. Spear's like, thanks for denying those. You gave him my lucky box. Now I got the combo I'm looking for here to get the high ground. So
Wow.
at the end of Glacier Polar Halfpipe, there is an angle you could take to use a Nitro to get on the high ground, then pull down with the magnet. It's really hard to counterplay. This high ground here that we just passed, when we get to the third lap of that high ground, that is exactly where Spear in particular is going to be trying to use these advantages, trying to deny some item boxes here. Hyunsu's going to take that high ground this time around, but that's the timing to watch out for, because that's really going to be the deciding moment. Is getting some of that momentum away from him is actually huge. He may have to use those items before that final lap.
Now we're seeing the UFOs and bananas coming out, distracting the players from maintaining their lead. Now we're starting to see a lot of magnets and nitrous across the board. I'm sure we're going to see some of that being utilized to get onto the top half of the track.
Going to use that UFO early, not going to try to save it for a potential snipe here. As I mean, right now we pretty much have full magnets in the inventories. I mean, there's 2 players who don't have it right now, and some have 2. As a high ground opportunity here, this is the moment. And 3 players going to get it. Hyunsu going to use his magnet behind. He's actually pushing through, but he doesn't have a magnet of his own. So Spear, he's just chilling. Like, all right, wait just a few more meters, so I'm going to pull you back. This looks pretty doomed.
Oh, no.
The Angel is just not going to be enough.
Yeah, Hyunsu picked up double items, but it
Insu,
was
though?
not enough.
Insu's got a boost here. We're 200 meters away. Insu just going to steal it away, maybe. And he will. Liiv SANDBOX going to bring us to an ace match. And once again, Insu just against all odds, man. It's his last dance. It's his last professional kart rider match. And he gets the free pass on the 4th track and on the 5th track here. He's the last hope. And yeah, there's no boost. There's no more magnets. It looks like KWANGDONGFREECS have it locked down, but Insu pushes it, goes through with 1 more boost, and barely, and I mean barely, look at that, 0.11 seconds faster than Spear, who has that combo setup, is able to bring us to an ace match. You can see how hyped Liiv SANDBOX are. But now it's going to be our first of potentially many ace matches that we are going to see here tonight as Liiv SANDBOX bring it back.
Man, Insu definitely clutching it for his team today in item mode. We talked about Insu being the player with the least first place finishes in item mode for Liiv SANDBOX, but he is swapping around the stats right now, turning the table upside down. And you have to wonder now for ace match, who is it going to be?
Yeah, it's a good question. It feels like we have the Guardian Angel item in the game, but somebody is on his shoulder right now with how this is going. So this looks like checkmate here. But then Insu comes over, UFO comes out here, Insu's able to avoid it. Magnet connection not great here, and Spear is just not able to actually get the distance he's looking for here as Insu avoids any collisions, moves to the right side, and just barely does it. Even though Spear did everything he was looking for there, the magnet pull isn't good enough, and Insu just is able to steal the win away.
I
Now,
like it.
In terms of ace match right now, I think you could always trust World. I think you always could trust World if you're Liiv SANDBOX. Cool had a win 3-0 in that same format just yesterday in our solo finals. So you could trust him too. On the side of Liiv SANDBOX, before tonight's series, I thought this is their biggest weakness, right? Ace matches, because Insu's choked. We've seen Neil choke in these matches. He choked last night. Like, these are the things that you really have to keep in mind. But with how well Insu is playing so far and where his momentum is, I think if there's going to be an ace match you're not too worried about him being nervous for, it's this one right here. Like, if you're going to play Insu in an ace match, now is the time, I'd say.
Yep, for sure, but you can't forget about Hyunsu, right? It's the Su duos. Either one of them showing up for Liiv SANDBOX would be making sense. Now we see it's Mind Winding Slopes, the track of choice for ace match.
Oh man, Winding Slopes has a lot of things that can go wrong as well. It's a track, as you can see here on the top of your screen, with a lot of hairpin turns.
We call it the intestine track.
Yeah, it is. It goes and goes and goes, and if you make one mistake on that path, you're doomed. No,
Absolutely doomed.
I trust World because he's won both the ace matches against Liiv SANDBOX.
There he is.
He's out, and they're going to give Neil an
it's
opportunity.
Neil.
I really didn't expect this, you know, especially considering the high chance that he could face off against Cool, who completely crushed him yesterday. But he's waving to the camera, he's waving to the fans, he's waving to World on the TV. He's got a lot of confidence tonight.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're going to give him one chance here. World defeated him last time. He had one bad collision. He had an error, his own mistake, a unforced error colliding, and World crushed him the last time they faced off. We'll see if that happens again tonight or if Neil can get revenge.
I definitely love how they gave the chance of revenge to Neil, and we're going to find out which player is going to take another advantage here in Mind Winding Slopes.
Neil looking for revenge. They faced off in the regular season. That time when Sunga was injured was a tough matchup. Liiv SANDBOX forced to ace, and Neil could not deliver. World has already beaten them once, but a chance for revenge here is World going to take a very aggressive inner here, and we'll do it once again, but Neil just maintaining a massive Nitro advantage right now. Neil's Nitro usage, I have to say, I think is the best in the KDL so far. He is just so incredibly good. It always feels like he's got an extra one in his inventory, like it's just not even fair.
Yeah, you look at World, his Nitro management is definitely off right now. He's actually running out of Nitros pretty much, while Neil always has two in the bag. We're seeing Neil pretty much sticking to his build, going for more of the cuts and the collisions into World to keep that advantage.
Yeah, World actually playing it very well, going a little bit low econ here with the pass, so has caught up now in terms of Nitro and even has a slight lead himself here. It's a one-lap track here, so it's all about avoiding collisions and trying to take some risky inners here. We've gotten through one of the trickier parts of the track right now. World with this lead is going to be able to take these fast shortcuts through. Neil trying to look for a draft angle right now, and here comes that turn where you normally can get a pass angle. One more. Neil's not finding it. He's not finding it.
Neil, oh no!
He's given up.
Wow, he spinned out of control from that collision into World, and now you look at the gap, it's way too big for Neil to try to close this.
Yeah, it's over. Neil has just self-retired here, and that's as close as it gets to a forfeit in professional kart rider play. And KWANGDONGFREECS will take it. World 3 times now, 3 times against Liiv SANDBOX. He is chosen and he delivers. He does not choke it away. And Neil, he just couldn't break through. And when you get those last 2 hairpin turns, or your last chance on the intestine map, as you put it, it is a great nickname for it, Winding Slopes, he just knew it's done. It's over. I can't do it. I can't pass him now. It's checkmate. And he just takes his foot off the grass. He's got that spin there. And World is like, once again, 3-0, baby. And KWANGDONGFREECS still undefeated in ace matches, and this is why I was saying it's a 0.4% edge. But I give him my edge to KWANGDONGFREECS because we keep going to ace matches with these two teams. World keeps coming out. Insu's defeated after Neil was defeated in regular season. Now Neil's defeated a second time. World just has these guys' numbers, and he just keeps stacking up the bodies at this point. And now KWANGDONGFREECS winners of Phase 1 here. 1 phase to go to be champions of our first preseason here in Kart Rider Drift.
Liiv SANDBOX, they have their back pushed up against the wall now. You have to wonder, how are they going to come back from this deficit? It was 3-2 for speed, 3-2 for item going all the way into that round number 5. But in the ace match, there's only one chance, and it's KWANGDONGFREECS who's able to capitalize off that.
KWANGDONGFREECS looking really good here out of the gate. The fact that they win speed in itself is another big testament to how much this team has improved. It looked like no one could touch Liiv SANDBOX, not even close. And yeah, we saw Aura play them close. We saw KWANGDONGFREECS bring it in the playoffs in the winners match, but it has just felt like recently Liiv SANDBOX has been a little bit off. I think it's that last dance pressure. There's so much on the minds of these players. We move into a new era of Cartwrighter where Neil failed yesterday in the finals. You know, Insu's got so much pressure it's hard to even call him out. But it's not over yet. This is a best of 3 of phases. Phase 1 went KWANGDONGFREECS' way. We'll see if when we come back after a short break, Liiv SANDBOX will tie us up here at the KDL Team League Finals.